March 11th, 2012 Juvenile Justice Committee to order. And at this point, I don't see Senator Murphy yet. Okay, he's not here yet, though, is he? Okay, thank you. What I'd like to do is go ahead and do Senate Bill 193 by Senator Cowsert, and the House sponsor for that bill is Regina Quick, and I would like to recognize Representative Quick for purposes of presenting the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And this is the same Senate companion to House Bill 236, which received, and there's Senator Cowsert, which received a due pass recommendation last week. Senator Cowsert and I spoke a little earlier, and he has agreed that our committee substitute, based on our work in hearing and our work at the last meeting, could certainly come out of the committee as with his blessing. And so I don't want to steal his thunder since he walked in the room, but great minds think alike, I suppose, and would ask for a favorable recommendation for Senate Bill 193.
Thank you, Representative Quick. I would like to recommend or recognize a couple of folks here today. We have with us Superior Court Judge Boyette from the Whitfield County or the Consauga Circuit, and I guess that's Whitfield and Murray County, Georgia. It's great to have you here, Judge, and always a privilege to see you out there. Thank you. And without further ado, I'd like to recognize Senator Cowsert. We've been talking about you and talking about your bill, all favorably, obviously.
Chairman, it's a pleasure to be here with your committee today. I really believe Representative Quick can probably answer most of any questions that anybody has. I understand it's already really been through the committee, so I won't belabor the point too much, but I'm naturally happy to answer any questions. It's titled the Uniform Interstate Family Support Act. The truth is it's more than just interstate. It also handles foreign orders from foreign countries. And I think it's a good protection for the families of Georgia to be able to enforce orders that were entered in another state where the parties are now here in Georgia and Georgia has jurisdiction over them. One issue that came up in the Senate and came through our Judiciary Committee was, would this in any way enforce an order from another state or another country that didn't have due process provisions in place, where the parties hadn't had an opportunity to be fairly heard, given notice of it before the order came in? And there is a provision in here where we must, or the courts do not have to enforce a foreign order if it didn't comply with the basic notions of fair play and due process under Georgia law. So I think that appeased that one concern. So long as the foreign country or foreign state had jurisdiction over the parties and they were properly notified and gave them a fair hearing before rendering a decision, then it's certainly fair for the state of Georgia to enforce it, keep people from having to go to another state to modify or enforce a child support order, any type of custody order.
Okay.
I think it passed the Senate with no negative votes. My recollection was that it was just non-controversial over there.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Have any questions of the authors? All right. Do I have a motion?
Due pass, Mr. Chairman.
There's been a motion due pass and a second. All those, is there any further discussion on the bill or any motions?
Mr. Chairman, I believe we would need to actually move, since it came over as Senate Bill 193, we would need to move that the committee substitute. No?
You have it in front of you. It's already been done.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And for the record, this is LC 295613S, and that's the motion due pass on that LC number.
That's correct, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, and that was seconded. Court, court. Judge, you got me all mixed up. You know, I got one of my judges down here. I get a little nervous. I know you are. The chair calls a question. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. All right, passes unanimous. Thank you very much, Senator.
Representative Quick has agreed to carry it unless the chair has a preference of anybody else. We'll be happy to work with it.
Sounds like an excellent choice.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir.
We've been with you.
Mm. Okay. Who's carrying this for him? Alan Powell. That's who's carrying it for him. We're going to stand at ease for a few minutes before we take up Senate Bill 69. Take about a 5-minute break. Thank you. Bills presently not available. We have Ms. Jackson. Ms. Jackson, would you mind just giving us some information about this and do it? I hear you want to speak to the bill, and you can do it from wherever you can do it there or wherever you feel most comfortable. Okay. Let's see now which one is that?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I apologize for Senator Murphy not being here to present this, but I think he's in another meeting, and apparently he's got tied up for longer than he expected to. You have before you Senate Bill 69. This is a bill coming to you from the Department of Juvenile Justice, which I represent as their liaison. This bill is to protect kids from the Open Records Act, basically. We have found in the last couple of years that many more of our children that are coming in are members of gangs or criminal activities on the street. We have also found that once they come to us, that if the right person talks to them, our investigators that they know and trust, that they're willing to talk and willing to give us information on things that are going on in the streets with the gangs and this sort of thing, as long as they're protected. We have found that we can't really rely on the law as it is now. We can, under the open records as it exists today, we can redact the children's name, but that is the only thing. If there's a gang, specific gang that they're members of, that can be shown. If there is an officer that this child has trusted, that officer's name can and has on several different occasions been printed in the newspaper. This, of course, hampers their efforts on the street to try to catch any of the gangs or any of the horrible things that's going on with the gangs. And this bill is simply protecting these children that are willing to give us information, as well as protecting our officers that are gathering the information. I'll be happy to try to answer any questions.
I don't see any questions from the committee. Is there anyone else from the audience here to speak to the bill? I have a question on this. When you have someone in a DJJ facility that they're being maintained in a detention situation, it's the practice of DJJ to investigate and I guess interrogate these children?
That is correct.
And are these children generally represented by counsel?
They are represented by counsel generally before they come in. Yes, depending on, certainly on the crime.
What kind of notices provided to the children's counsel when after they've been incarcerated or been not incarcerated?
When they're being questioned?
Well, when they're in detention. What's the procedure there for questioning them and interrogating the children?
The children are free to come to the officers or employees of the department with information that they have on wrongdoings that they witnessed or were a party to on the street, or wrongdoings that may be going on, whether it be criminal or mistreatment of the children within the facility, they are free to come forward with that. At that point in time, if they come forward, they're advised of their rights, and if they decide to give the information, then they can do it at that time.
Okay, and then the point of this bill is to protect those children. I think once they're released back out into society. Mostly
back on society, but as I'm sure most of you on this committee are aware of, things get back into the prison just about as quick as they hit the street. So if it's printed in a newspaper, the other kids, a couple of months ago, a very similar thing happened, and they were doing everything in their power to keep these two kids separated, and it was medicine call time, and it just happened that both of them were on medicine, and they met, one coming, one going, and the one that had the bad feelings for the other one did some pretty serious damage to the child, and that's the sort of thing that we're trying to prevent.
Well, that's a good example. Can you expand on the details of the? You don't have to name names, but I
couldn't if I had to.
Okay. Can you give us the details of how that incident that occurred? I guess that's probably what motivated this bill.
That has a lot to do with motivating this bill, in addition to the fact that a little while earlier an officer's name who had taken information from the child and who had done the investigation and had taken the information from the child, the officer's name was printed in the newspaper that he was furnishing out information, and we had to move him to another location because he was afraid of the kids. We have kids up to 21 years old. If they're arrested at the time they're 16 and they're sentenced, they can be sentenced to 5 years depending on the severity of the crime. And we have kids up to 21 years old who can really do some serious damage to a guard. And another problem we have is so many of the guards are near, not a whole lot older than some of the kids that we have in there, the children. We have to call them children, though they're 21.
You have a couple other questions. I'd like to recognize Representative Allison.
Senator, good to see you again.
Thank you, Representative. Good to see you always.
I have one question. I was taking the, as I look at line 15, section B of this bill, this looks to be more of an internal matter than an external, where it says basically that they're protecting the identity of children who report abuses in the juvenile justice system. Is that supposed to be with your officers or with someone in a correctional facility? The way that's written makes it sound like it's looking internally rather than externally at activities that these kids may know about outside the system.
That hopefully it's doing both. It's protecting the child on the inside for information that child is giving to an officer, and it's making provisions for the officer. And quite frankly, I've spoken with some others, and they think that that sentence should end at the end of on line 17, at the end of the number 50. That's not necessary, that should be internal, just as you spoke of.
I have no further questions.
Okay, thanks, sir. Representative Atwood.
I have a similar question, and I may want to save it for the author of the bill, but I'll ask you.
Okay.
And it deals with line 15. It appears to me to be too broad. The identity of children and the information provided by children who report abuses or wrongdoing in the juvenile justice system shall not be subject to disclosure. And what I see here is if I had a guard assaulting a child, that information is kept confidential. You see what I'm saying?
That is correct.
And so
they're dealt with internally.
Yeah, and if I see any internal thing going on in this system being kept, frankly, from the press and from external forces, and that's a little concerning to me. I want to protect the children, and I was a federal agent for 28 years and a police officer for Atlanta for 7. And if I did something inside that organization, it wasn't protected. it had to be disclosed, except when I worked undercover.
Right.
And I can see protecting any information given that deals with other convicts and, or I mean inmates, I should say, lack of a better term.
Well, what about
But I'm-
information for street gangs? Are you
Yeah,
comfortable?
that sort of thing. I can see keeping that
Yes.
quiet. I'm a little concerned about internal abuses that may be going on. I'm not accusing anyone, but it happens in the
Oh,
best
of
of
course.
organizations. And that seems a little broad. That's why I asked the chairman if there's anybody from the Press Association here, but apparently there's not. So
I
anyway,
personally
just food for thought as we work through this.
Okay, good. I understand where you're coming from. And we also thought about in line 9 and again in line 15 where it says children, making that child as opposed to children.
Anything else?
I certainly cannot speak on behalf of the author,
Yeah.
but on behalf of the department, I can tell you that I don't think we would have any problem with that whatsoever as long as our child's name was redacted.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Ms. Jackson.
Thank you,
That's it.
sir. Thank you, committee. We appreciate it.
Thank you. At this time, I think we'll hold this bill briefly, and we'll schedule another meeting on this, and we'll move forward at that time. There any other business to come before the committee? All right. Accordingly, we'll be adjourned. Thank you.